In the first half of the 20th century, the United States had attempted to remain as an isolationistic nation in order to maintain our independence regarding foreign policies. However, due to the United States being a superpower, these efforts have proven to be difficult and even impossible at times, especially around the times of World War I and World War II. In order to achieve this goal, the country first needed to realize and understand why it is important for the United States to remain separate from other nations. Next, what actions would be required to ensure that this objective was attainable? If the desired result was achieved, how was this going to affect other countries in the world? Even back to the administration of George Washington, isolationism was looked upon as a way of American life. In his farewell address in 1796, the first president of the United States, George Washington, spoke of isolationism as the country's true policy and that we are to stay clear of any permanent alliances with any foreign nations. If the United States was to form alliances and those alliances got involved in a conflict, we would be called upon to give aid during that conflict. This in turn would hurt our economy as the country would be required to contribute its resources such as finances and military equipment. To add, the country would no doubt be sending manpower to the areas of conflict as well. An example of a costly conflict was World War I. After being pulled into the war with Germany, America, by the end of the war, had spent almost $30 billion and had over 4 million men serving through the duration of the war. Once the war was over, America found itself desiring to get back to their isolated state, as did its government. One of the first actions to confirm this was the refusal of the United States to join the League of Nations, which was created to serve as an international committee that would promote the organization of countries to come together to discuss and resolve disputes. Then, as the country began to focus on recovering efforts from the losses of war, the farming and automobile industry, along with some others, began to prosper. In order for these flourishing industries to thrive, and due to fewer products being exported, the United States Congress passed the Fordney-McCumber Tariff in 1922. This act gave the authority to the president to increase or decrease the tariff by as much as 50%, so as to deter Americans from buying foreign-made products. A few years afterwards, for the first time in U.S. history, an Immigration Act was created to establish a quota system to limit certain nationalities from migrating to the country. The Immigration Act of 1924 put tight restrictions on entrance into the country so as to not allow migrants such as Asians and Eastern Europeans into the country. One of the major reasons for this was due to the willingness of these immigrants to work for lower wages. As immigrants continued to try to migrate to America, the events across the Atlantic were steadily worsening. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became the chancellor of a conspiring government and withdrew from the League of Nations. Therefore, as one causing factor, the United States established the First Neutrality Act as a means of isolating themselves from being a part of a possible upcoming war. The First Neutrality Act of 1935 banned the exporting from the United States of any form of weaponry or war-related items to any foreign nation at war. The act also went as far as to include a disclaimer to state that if any Americans were traveling in any foreign war zone, they are to understand that they are doing so at their own risk. It was the specifics of this act of the United States' attempt to remain separate from foreign issues that actually brought them into the next World War. In September 1940, the U.S. restricted the exportation of goods such as iron, steel, and fuel to Japan due to the conflict with French Indochina. Then, in the following year, another Neutrality Act was implemented that went a step further by prohibiting the loan of financial resources to hostile nations. In 1940, the United States military service had over 450,000 active military personnel. In 1941, when the United States entered the Second World War after Pearl Harbor, Hawaii was attacked by Japan. The U.S. military dramatically increased. By 1945, the number of U.S. citizens active in the Army, Navy, or Marine Corps was over 12 million. In addition to this, the United States spent over $4 trillion in total by the end of World War II. The resultant consequences of the United States trying to stay in a state of isolationism is no longer a reality. It's no longer a realistic goal, as it has too many negative impacts on the rest of the world. For instance, when the country began to place high tariffs on American exports, other countries in turn decreased their purchases of American-made products. This resulted in the trading partners of the United States to place high tariffs on their exports to the United States as well, and which contributed to the outcome of the Great Depression. Also, during this time frame when the United States withdrew from foreign relations, other countries such as Germany was given the opportunity for a dictator like Hitler to come into power. Had the United States intervened earlier, the millions of people who died at the power of his hands might have survived. Lastly, while it is never wise to give aid, or trade for that matter, to a warring nation, when the United States implemented the Neutrality Acts and cut off trade with Japan, the country became fueled in its attempts to reestablish that trade. When it was unsuccessful, Japan ended up bombing Pearl Harbor, which drew us into the war anyway. As history has shown and continues to show, the lack of action on the part of the United States has devastating consequences for those countries unable to defend themselves. A perfect modern example of this occurred in 1990, in the 90s, where Bosnia was subject to a massive genocide for over 3 years without any foreign assistance whatsoever. Due to this lack of intervention, over 100,000 people were needlessly murdered. There's too much evil and hatred in the world for our country to turn away and be concerned with just our own affairs. It is the only way, when we step in on behalf of others and utilize the resources that we have on their behalf, that we can defeat the enemy and achieve peace.